Welcome to Insights Live. For this show, we'll be discussing how to grow your business with live streaming video. Hi, I'm Bill Knowland with Direct Images Interactive. We're excited to bring you these live streaming events. And we have a great one here today because it's fun and timely that it's a live video event about live video. So we have some great thought leaders on the subject today, including Kim Garst, who is our host. I want to tell you a little bit about Kim here. She is an international best-selling author and keynote speaker. She is one of the world's most retweeted people among digital marketers and a highly sought-after marketing strategist. Forbes named Kim as one of the top 10 social media power influencers. She has provided social and digital marketing advice to some of the world's top brands like Microsoft, IBM, and MasterCard, as well as hundreds of influential business leaders on digital and social media business strategies. Please welcome Kim Garst.
Well, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks so much for that lovely intro, Bill. Obviously, live video is like a hot topic right now. It has been for several years. I was an early adopter to what we now know as, the ease of live streaming in particular. But it's been gaining popularity exponentially. A lot more marketers are beginning to take notice and say, hey, I need to be doing this as well. And I think as compression continues to improve, we're already seeing this, in fact, as things continue to improve, bandwidth, etc. We're seeing a lot of movement from content consumption to live streaming opportunities. And, people are consuming a lot more content, leveraging the power of live video, which gives us an amazing opportunity as marketers. One of the biggest advantages, though, as it relates to live video is the fact that it gives us a lot more engagement. It's not just like sharing something on social and hoping that, somebody responds to it. With live video, you have that immediacy, that interaction, and it's a fabulous opportunity. According to Livestream, live video is more appealing to brand audiences. In fact, 80% would rather watch live video than read a blog, and 82% prefer live video from a brand versus traditional standard social media post. That's kind of like an amazing wowzer, right? So I think it's time for us to wake up and smell the live streaming coffee. So these are all things that we're going to discuss with everyone, all of our guests today, and we have some fabulous guests today. Speaking of, I want to introduce you to my amazing friend, Owen Video. Owen is the CEO of Video Spot. It's an online marketing agency. He is a live video expert with the BizTube Academy, host of the Business of Video podcast, and is a regular contributor to TubeBuddy, Get Response, Email Marketing, and Be Live. And I count him as a friend. So I'm super excited to have him join us. So say hey to Owen. Honestly, everybody knows him as Owen Video, but look at that background, right? Isn't that like eye-popping? Yes, he's got a great background. We also have actually all of our guests today are just fabulous, but another guest that we have is Joshua Shaw. Josh is a video producer and technical director in the video game industry. He is responsible for conception and execution of live broadcast at the largest live streaming platform for gaming, Twitch.tv. This is really exciting because for me, Twitch is like one of those things that I haven't dug into a whole lot. So I'm really excited to hear from Josh today. Josh manages switching, audio, and encoding hardware for Twitch's own live content and consults with external partners on streaming. He contributes to event and off-site broadcast design, setup, and operation. So that's like a lot of stuff. So we're going to get a lot of great content from Josh today. I'm super excited about that. We also have Kelly from HubSpot. Now, most of you guys are probably familiar with HubSpot, right? You may not know that there's all these amazing people behind what happens at HubSpot, and Kelly is one of those people. She is the social media manager over at HubSpot, an inbound marketing, sales, and service company. She is responsible for the creative strategy of HubSpot social channels, in addition to overseeing paid social efforts for non-remarketing and retargeting and integrated campaigns. Now that's a mouthful, right? It just means she does some really clever things. Currently in the B2B space, she has previously provided social creative advice to some B2C brands such as Progressive, Ocean Spray, and Milkbone. Bottom line, you guys are going to be so blessed by this lady. She has some amazing insights to share with us. We also have Randy Marcotte, CEO and co-founder of Perfect Video Conferencing. Randy is an HD video conferencing expert offering IP video conferencing. Randy works with products like LifeSize and IP PBX solutions like ShoreTel, Global Call, and other powerhouse partners like Blue Jeans, Zoom, and Video. And he wears amazing bow ties, right? He dressed up for us today. So you guys are going to get a lot of great content from Randy as well. And we also are incredibly blessed because Bill, who is made the arrangements for all of this and had this creative brainchild, is the co-founder of Direct Images Interactive, an inbound marketing agency that specializes in video marketing and online design. Bill has produced hundreds of videos. I mean, when you think about that, hundreds of videos, that's like a mile marker in and of itself. And interactive presentations for Adobe, Apple, and HP, big name brands. So he's definitely in the know, obviously. In addition, Bill has worked as director of photography on over 20 music videos and has served on the board of directors of Canon Cinema. He is the producer of Insights video series. So he is with us today as well. So now that I've kind of introduced everybody and you know what's going to be happening, what you're going to get out of this today, let's dive in. We're going to talk about, we're going to get started with why. Why is live video so effective? We all know that video has been impactful from a business standpoint for years. I mean, it's not like we didn't know that, but it was always one of those like big things you had. It was like, from a standpoint or from the standpoint of perfectionism, you know, had to have the lights, the camera, all of this stuff. So it's always been there. And yet it's been a struggle for a lot of marketers and business owners to really embrace what I would call the traditional video strategies. And I think that's why live video is so much more impactful. For the same reasons that traditional video, as we know it, is impactful. It's likewise is it exactly the same for live video, except there's some additional layers to it. For example, live video in particular is way more engaging from a communication standpoint because people can interact with you in real time. It's quicker and easier to learn. So the barrier to entry is so much easier than, you know, having to have fancy equipment. All you really have to have is your phone at a base level anyway. You can be authentic and transparent, and people are just eating that up. You know, they want to connect to real brands, real people behind those brands. So live video creates that emotional connection. And it's very agile because we are, again, communicating in real time. So people are, you know, able to ask questions, engage, and get a sense for us on a personal level. And that's one of the reasons that, or many of the reasons why live video is so impactful. And I believe is even more impactful than what we would traditionally call, standard video. You know, lots of times with regular, I call regular video, it's a little bit more scripted, or can be a little bit more scripted. It doesn't have to be, obviously, but with live video, you're just in the moment, and it's again just a connection point. It's an emotional connection point with your community. So I want to give you a few stats because, you know, for those of you who are, you know, interested in knowing the numbers, I know it's all great to hear, well, yeah, that sounds great, Kim. I get that, you know, there's this emotional connection and, you know, people can engage with you. But give me some numbers. So did you know that live streaming, the market as a whole, is going to be about $70 billion by the year 2021? Think about that. Do you want a piece of that? Who doesn't, right? And in our current social media space, 80% of customers would prefer watching live videos to other types of social content. Again, wowzers, right? Over 70% of internet users, over 70% of internet usage is now attributed to video. So that just means that of the content and the content that's being consumed, about 70% of it is video based. Wow. Again, who doesn't want a slice of that? And then about 13% of internet use is now attributed to or allocated to live video. So the beautiful part about that is, one, video is definitely where people are consuming content based on the numbers, and the amount of people who are actually creating that content is at a fairly low percentage point right now. So the early adopters, people who really step up and start creating live content are going to win. So real quick, deep diving just a little deeper into this whole live video concept and how people are consuming content and the shift as it relates to how people are consuming content. There's this term called over the top, or OTT for short. And essentially, the technical definition for it is a secondary channel of distribution for content providers, basically bypassing network television and cable service providers. But at a simple and very basic way of describing this, it's a shift again in how people are consuming content. The main factor here is that OTT TV bypasses the cable or satellite TV gatekeepers. Most of us are familiar with Netflix, right? But there are other trends like Sling TV or YouTube TV, etc. In some cases, live video is being incorporated into these traditional platforms. Netflix now allows viewers to watch live sports and for viewers to participate in live exercise classes, for example. Which brings me to a very interesting relationship that Amazon has with Twitch. And I want to pick Josh's brain a little bit on this. So real quick, for those of our viewers that don't know, Josh, what is this alliance between Amazon and Twitch?
Well, if people aren't familiar with Twitch, I think it's important to give a little background. We're a household name in gaming for just the gaming community. People go to Twitch to watch people play live games. So when we say live streaming, we're definitely referring to what this is, where it's conversation, there's people watching right now. We're not talking about Netflix's traditional streaming content. So Twitch has thousands of people streaming every day to millions of viewers, from just someone streaming to a couple of their friends watching at home to the largest esports tournament. And we're also branching outside of gaming now to include other stuff. And that's where we're finding more partnerships with Amazon, who acquired us about 4 years ago. So we're showing marathons of content. So something like, we've actually shown all of Bob Ross's paint-along videos. And even though that wasn't live interactive content, we still had the audience all watching and interacting with each other. And so Twitch recognizes the power of that sort of thing. Everything you said earlier, I really loved, where it is more authentic to have these experiences where we can talk to our audience. So yeah, the power of live is really what Twitch is built on. And we're trying to add all sorts of tools to make it easier and more lucrative for people to stream on Twitch.
I love that. And, I love that some of these major platforms realize the value of live streaming. So they're, if they don't have the technology, they're purchasing, amazing platforms like, Twitch, and incorporating them into their system and into their audiences as well. So just digging a little bit deeper, how does Twitch differ from what we would traditionally think of other social video platforms? Most of the time when we think about social video platforms, where we think about, Facebook Live or YouTube Live or Periscope even. So how is it different? How's Twitch different than from other social video platforms?
I think in quite a few ways. One of the major ways is we started with a focus on live. That's Twitch's core product. We also do have video on demand and everything in other products, but live is really the focus for us, whereas for many of the other social media platforms, it was a feature they added later. We also have like direct revenue options for people. So streamers on Twitch can earn money via subscriptions versus with ad revenue share, and there's other monetization options. So Twitch can be like a direct income source for people rather than simply a marketing outlet. And then we also just focus on providing a lot of tools for live streamers, more ways to interact, more metrics for people streaming, a lot of insight there. Everything we do is really designed to make streaming more accessible for everyone, and to give professional streamers who make a living streaming to Twitch more paths for growth, more ways to make money.
That's awesome. I love the monetization functionality that's built into Twitch, because you're right, that is a missing piece on a lot of the other, social live streaming options. So what other areas is Twitch looking to really expand into? And more specifically, what audience are, you talk about gamers is a big part of your community. So what other audiences are you wanting to attract to the Twitch platform?
I think right now when people think of Twitch, they instantly think of gaming, but we've loosened the restrictions there. It used to be exclusively gaming. Now, as long as you're interacting with your audience, you can do all sorts of things. And then we're also attracting different people to stream on Twitch. So some things as an individual people do is they cook, they paint, they eat big meals with their audience. They even take walks and just talk to their audience as well. But people are also streaming sports games. We announced that NFL will be streaming Thursday night football games to Twitch, and you can watch that with your audience. We're streaming marathons of content like Doctor Who or Power Rangers. So Twitch is really opening up, and we're focusing on ways for people to have these shared experiences watching something. We think it's more interesting to watch something like Doctor Who with a big audience where you're all laughing at the jokes together rather than watching it by yourself. And then we're also adding more tools for people constantly, especially ones about building more interactivity options. So one major thing we're doing is we have an extensions platform which allows people to build tools on top of their videos. So all the old stuff that we'd see for like American Idol, where it'd be like vote for someone and call a number, or a second screen experience, now can happen right over the video. So if you want to vote for someone, you just click a picture of them and it'll tally that vote. And that sort of functionality can be added to all sorts of things. Like if you're watching the NFL, maybe you could click on a team and see all of their stats and see all the info for each player. And that would be updated live. And then you could close it when you're no longer interested.
That is fabulous. I honestly, I didn't know that Twitch did all of that. So this is fascinating to me, and I would assume fascinating to all of the viewers as well. So one thing that I really took away from what you said, and I think this is the big piece of all of live streaming, is the community aspect, where it's not just about, you sharing content to an audience, but it's about, really encouraging them to engage with one another and to be a part of like-minded group of folks, right? Or a like-minded group of people who are interested in the same type of content, which I think is a fascinating from the live streaming space, even from the standpoint of, making it easier in real time for people to communicate around things like that. So love that you said that. So what are some of your best tips that you want to share that as it relates to putting on a really great live video event?
I would say that live video compared to a post-produced video, it is harder to get the same level of production value. So what you want to do is emphasize the things that make live special and unique. So if you aren't interacting with your audience, I think you're definitely missing out on a big part of what makes live video powerful. There are other reasons, such as like timeliness. If you wanted to broadcast an announcement, you want it to get out as soon as possible. But I think the core live strength is you're able to interact, and people who are able to talk to someone on the screen, like if people were to ask us questions, as they are gonna later, I think it makes a much more powerful connection with that viewer to the brand or content or streamer.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Well, real quick, let's bring in Owen and kind of segue a little bit to YouTube and some of the opportunities that YouTube brings our way. Now, Owen, I know that you have a super strong presence on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Periscope, which is where I first was introduced to you. What is the status of Periscope? I mean, what is your thoughts on that? Is it still there? Do you think Twitter's going to do anything spectacular with it? Or more specifically, what's missing? Why are not more people, really stepping into that space?
Great question. And I had both my phones up because while you were talking, I was streaming on 3 different channels. So I'm glad now I'm gonna dial in here and focus on what we're talking about. Periscope made a splash. It kind of came to maturity during the time of Blab and Meerkat, and then Periscope. And Periscope was the one, thanks to the investment by Twitter, that made it along the way. Here's what's happening though: Twitter is slowly killing itself with its lot of political regulations. They're regulating certain political voices and not regulating others, and that's driving a ton of people away from the platform. I think Twitter is also suffering from an identity crisis right now in what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. And Periscope is still there. I think for a lot of streamers like yourself that had audiences there, continue to have audiences there. It's largely a female demographic. Now, every time I say that, a handful of males get it. Say, I have a presence on Periscope. I didn't say, gentlemen, that it was only female. I said it's largely a female audience. And think about the branding behind Periscope. It's a lot of purples and pinks, and you click on the hearts, and it's a lot of Easter bunny colors. This is not an app that appeals to me. It's not an app that speaks my language, especially when I serve an audience that's 70% male. So I think with Periscope, I would say you have to tread lightly. It is not going to be a mainstream app. We are sort of depending on or looking to see what Twitter is going to do before we know, succinctly what Periscope is going to do. And so my coaching, my consulting to anybody asking that question would be to look at YouTube and Facebook as your primary live streaming outlets to build an audience. And if you want to transfer them over to Periscope, then that's certainly an idea. Periscope is a mobile only platform, right? Jason Rodriguez saying Owen is way too manly for Periscope. I didn't want to bring out the guns today, but it's not that. It's the branding is very female and it's female centric, and so you have to kind of consider that. Like if you're a construction worker or a plumber, or if you're like my good friend Jason Rodriguez, who does woodworking, is Periscope the right place for you? If you're like Peck Drywall, right, who's a fantastic friend in the YouTube and live stream community, is his drywall company going to look good on Periscope? You got to ask yourself these things. Are you going to get the reach, the audience? YouTube and Facebook are going to be the places right now where you're going to develop those audiences. And Twitch, don't get me wrong, Twitch has me itching to get involved on that platform. And we're excited to see what Twitch does there.
Yeah, I was very intrigued by what Josh shared as it relates to Twitch, because I just I haven't really tested it, haven't tried it out yet. So I'm very intrigued by that. As it relates to Periscope, I agree. I think Twitter needs to pull their head out and figure out where they are going. I kind of said early on last year that I thought they would be absorbed, picked up and ultimately become a media outlet, but who knows? I definitely think they are, like you said, killing themselves. I'm not sure if I'm like, I hadn't even thought of it being a female like branding issue, because I'm always like, well, there's the poo colored hearts. So I don't know. But anyway, great insights. I really enjoyed listening to what you had to share as it relates to Periscope. So that said, if Periscope's not like your sweet spot, what about Facebook Live and YouTube? How are you using those two platforms? Now, I know you're using YouTube because you're a YouTube pro, but how are you using them ultimately? Both, and do you use them in conjunction with one another? Or do you have some sort of a strategy that, you go live on one place and you share it somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and I'll give you a couple different answers. We first of all, we love simulcasting. The ability to simulcast, especially if you're using a desktop platform like vMix or Wirecast, and we're using both. We use Wirecast for one show, we use vMix for another show. These are platforms that allow you to multi-stream on both platforms. So, we're building a show for a Fortune 1000 company. They're actually an energy provider, providing energy to 21 different states in the nation. And we've built out a show for them, and we're going to be simulcasting that show. It's a live show. It's going to be like a morning talk show. It's called Power Your Passion. Isn't that cute? It's an energy company, and the name of the show is Power Your Passion. We came up with all that, folks. We're doing that to create community and to give the customers and the pre-customers of this particular energy company a place to gather and a place to build community and say we're more than just, we're saying to them, you're more than just customers to us, right? You're what helps pay for our salaries and helps power the things that we love to do. And so we're using live to build community. We're using live to reach out past the traditional, you ever go out to your mailbox and there's a postcard from your dentist and it's like, it's you're kind of like, happy birthday, Kim, from your dentist. And you're just kind of like, okay, all right, thank you, I guess. But there's no real relationship there, right? That's sort of like the traditional line of major companies to their customer base. And what live video is doing is shrinking that. And we're going directly to the customer to where we can engage with them, we can hear from them, and we can introduce them to ideas. We're going to have crafters on the show. We've got Jackie Tang coming on the show, who's actually a live streamer on Twitch with a cooking show. So, she does her live stream thing. We're going to bring her onto our live stream thing to give our audience a great recipe, for making meatballs or whatever it is that she's going to do for us on that episode. So that's one thing. For big companies, live streaming is bringing them closer directly to their customers, where now this faceless corporate giant that they're paying a monthly bill to is no longer hiding from their customers, and instead is going right out there and saying, here we are. We want to get to know you. So that's one thing. I use live streaming on Facebook Live. We broadcast our podcast live every single week, and you can check that out at thebusinessofvideopodcast.com, where my co-host Nick Nimmin and I, we broadcast live on Facebook only, okay? On Facebook only. Josh Shaw saying, call me baby. You got it, buddy. Air five to you, my friend. He's still on. He's still on with us. That's hilarious. The idea is that we broadcast the podcast live on Facebook only, and this generates exclusivity for us, right? This is a FOMO thing, right? Where we're saying to our audience, if you want to watch us record this podcast live, join us on Facebook Live, right? When we've got users that are listening to the podcast on iTunes, they're actually hearing that they could join us on Facebook Live if they wanted to be more interactive with the show. Now, some people don't want to do that. They're more of an audio type of person, and they want to just hear the show. But other people are going, man, I really like what Owen and Nick have to say. I think they could really help my company. I'm going to log in live and ask my questions directly. And so, again, we're using Facebook to provide this, or live streaming to provide this exclusivity thing. Like, hey, come and join us and see behind the scenes. It would be like, going behind the scenes and seeing your favorite TV show, right? I remember when I was a kid, I got to go see Saved by the Bell broadcast live in studio. That was an awesome experience for me. I went and saw the Jay Leno show taped live, and you get to see Jay Leno, get to shake his hand if you're in the front row. That's what live video does. It gives you this exclusivity, this fear of missing out. Like, it's happening live right now. You've got to join us. And that's how you can move your audience into action with you, right? So it's not just about consuming the content passively on the car ride home anymore. Now it's about getting them from the car ride, okay, over to the Facebook Live audience, where they're seeing our facial expressions. They're seeing our errors. I mean, I can't tell you how many times. I mean, it's a live show. We'll do something and I'll be talking and it's just like, oh, sorry, my audio wasn't on. You know what I mean? Like little things like that, that you don't get to hear on pre-produced content, right? You only see the good stuff. And so friends like Eugene Popa, who's logging in right now, joins us every single Wednesday for the Business of Video podcast, and he gets that exclusivity. He gets that live behind-the-scenes feel. And Jason Rodriguez saying you make hundreds of errors. Thank you, Jason Rodriguez. Is it past your bedtime? It's time for you to hang up now.
The other interesting thing I think that you said indirectly, but I just really want to highlight it because I think it's so huge. It's probably the biggest value add for us when we're bringing that community in and giving them a voice. Like if they're listening, they don't have a voice. They just listen. They're consuming content. But when they're live and in the moment with you, they have a sense of being seen and being heard because they can ask questions, they can communicate directly with you, and I think that is the secret sauce, right? So moving on just a little bit, what do you think about how live video is being used in Snapchat? Is Snapchat dying? Are they killing themselves like Periscope? And Instagram?
Okay, Instagram live video. I love it. I am constantly logging into Instagram live videos. I think that the Instagram algorithm needs a little bit of work. I am not hearing enough from the people, right? So I'm going to name drop here. Sean Cannell does fantastic work. When Sean goes live, I want to see it. And I'm not getting those alerts. And then yesterday I got an alert from someone who I like and who's a friend, but did I really need that alert? So I think that the Instagram algorithm needs a little bit of work. However, Instagram is owned by Facebook, so they have the right people, the right counselors sort of involved there. And I think that Instagram is going to do some amazing things in live video, and I want to encourage all of you guys to start paying attention to what's going on Instagram. Plus, you have stories and you have updates. You have a lot of great stuff going on there. You can't post links, right? So there's a lot of advantage to content on Instagram. So I like that. Snapchat, I think that Snapchat sent out to, and Blab did the same thing, right? Blab came out and they said, we're not going to sell to Facebook. We're going to buy Facebook. And it was sort of that arrogance that led to their downfall. And now they're but a whisper, that a few of us remember. And that's unfortunate because they offered such great features. I think Snapchat's doing the same thing. I think Snapchat is more interested in sort of bucking the system to the old guard of social media. And they're doing these things that appeal to an audience that isn't supporting their advertisers, right? So they're building this entire platform up for 18 to 24-year-olds who have no jobs. And they're getting all this advertising dollars from these companies that aren't seeing a return on their investment. And they're not even seeing hope for a return on their investment. So, I mean, this quarter they posted negative earnings for the first time ever, and we've sort of been seeing this coming. Snapchat, in my advice to you, if you're a business professional, run and hide from Snapchat. There is nothing there for you. And yet, if you're an 18 to 24-year-old, youngin, I would say, hey, have as much fun as you can before they tank. That company needs more. They need better leadership that is more interested in growing the platform than making a political statement, right? And making a sort of a revolutionary statement, because at the end of the day, it's great software. They've led the way. They're innovative. They led the way in so much. But Facebook took all the credit for it because Facebook is the one that got those features out to the masses. So,
and of course, now those features are slowly but surely being integrated into Instagram, so, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think they have really just deviated from what ultimately would have generated revenue by building a platform for, to your point, the youngins, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, you may ultimately want to target young people, but they don't have the money to spend with you. And, to go to back to your point, all these all of these companies that are trying to target specific demographics are coming up short, when it comes to their advertising dollars. So that won't take long to peter out. So as it relates to just some maybe best tips or kind of giving some concrete direction for people who are trying to plan some sort of a live streaming or a live marketing strategy, what would be one or two things that you could just share with people real quick?
Yeah, we have a guide at livestreamgearguide.com, and I'm sorry for being so blunt about that, but it's there, and you guys can go check that out. you've got to get your equipment locked in. We have built a full-on broadcasting studio inside my garage. I don't even want to call it, we're not allowed to call it the garage anymore. We only call it the studio. In that studio, we have multiple thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And every time you turn one thing on, something else goes off, right? Every time you turn the mic up, you get feedback over here. And there's all these little sort of levers that you have to pull. So that's an extreme example. In my office right now, I'm using a Logitech C920 webcam. I'm using a microphone that's plugged into a mixer. The mixer is plugged into my computer. It is a simple setup, but even on this setup, if you're using a PC, it wouldn't work the exact same way. Mac tends to be less customizable, but plug and play, right? Easy to use. Whereas a PC, you've got all these different levers and buttons that need to be pushed. You have got to dial in I'm also using a ring light back here to make my face look beautiful.
You got to have the ring light.
I love the ring lights, right? I was using a softbox back here, and it was kind of washing everything out. The ring light really is fantastic. In here, I've got about, let's see, 200, 100, 100, about $400 worth of equipment. And it's a one-time investment that I've way made back in my live streaming. My point is this. You have to get your equipment dialed in. If you're going to be using just your mobile device, right, you're going to need a mobile device, a ring light, right? And you're going to need something like a tripod to keep it all stable and steady, right? We're tired of this kind of video, by the way, guys. We're all tired of this.
Makes us dizzy.
Yeah, it makes us dizzy. It says unprofessional. You have to dial in your equipment. And if you guys agree with that statement, give me some like bombs on Facebook right now. Just like bomb away, because if you don't have the right equipment and you haven't run a couple tests, right? God bless Bill Knowland. Bill Knowland ran us through 3 or 4 different tests before we went live today. You have got to be better. A year ago, it was like, just go live, right? Well, now, guess what? Everyone's going live. So now you have to be better live, right? Get your equipment dialed in. Have a nice looking background. No more beige walls. Okay, we're past the age of beige walls. And deliver a message. I honestly don't even care how good your message is. If you look good enough, you'll get viewers. Your message will get better. Dial in your equipment, totally test it, and then just go live until you're blue in the face.
Go crazy with it. Yes. All right. Thank you, Owen. I want to give both Owen and Josh a huge shout out and thank you for all your wonderful tips. I can't wait to learn more about Twitch in particular because I'm already although I need to learn more YouTube, but hey, that's a story for another day. Thank you guys so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All
right.
It's
great. Thank you.
So now we're going to move on to take a look at a few additional ways that you can stream live and how it is impacting business. So we're going to move on to Kelly at HubSpot. I'm super excited to share or to hear what Kelly has to share. So, hey, Kelly.
Hey.
So let me throw a quick question at you. So HubSpot is obviously an inbound marketing and sales software company. And basically they just help customers attract visitors, convert leads, and close sales. Now that's not just, that's a big deal. So how does HubSpot really reach out to their customer or their prospect using live video?
Sure. So similar to actually what Owen was just saying, maybe 2 years ago, we had that philosophy of just go live. And what we found is that that's not actually really helping our buyer and our buyer's journey. Because as we know, the whole root of inbound marketing is being human and meeting people where they're at. So with live, we've evolved and really started to think of it in the sense of actually the funnel. So we use it at all stages, from the very topmost awareness and delightful moments where we dig into what we call edutainment, where we educate our audience as well as entertain them. And we do that on channels like Facebook, actually Instagram stories live, similar to what Owen just said. But then we start to bring people down the funnel a little bit to the middle, where then we have live content that's more in the realm of education. And the reason that that helps us get more into the funnel is with that education, we can bring them either off-site from social, or that middle of the funnel live content could actually live on a landing page where there's other opportunities to bring those leads in. And then very bottom of the funnel, we can call it live streaming, but it's really that one-on-one dynamic. So sales calls, live demos, but again, it's really about meeting our audience and our buyers where they're at to really give them their best live, most personal and impactful live experience.
I love that answer. Thank you. I have just one quick question, because you talked about the middle of the funnel process, and just from the standpoint of making sure everybody gets that, you're talking about sending them to a landing page where you're asking them for their information, correct? Where you're collecting a data point from them.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And there are ways within Facebook where you can have, once the ads come into play, you can also do that with social. We found right now it's more effective to do that on a landing page. It's also what in that middle of the funnel stage where you're really starting to consider, is this the right product for me? Actually being able to then go and see, oh, you know what, there's actually like a really cool ebook, or there's a really awesome blog post, kind of keeping people in our ecosystem world. That's what helps us keep bringing them down further and further.
Yeah, I love that. Just smart marketing. Live video isn't just obviously for social interaction and consumers anymore. In a survey conducted by IBM and Brand Live, almost 44% of the respondents said they have moved beyond just social media with live video for their business. And only a small number of businesses in the survey are not using video beyond social in 2018. So video is a big deal, and people and brands are really beginning to wrap their heads around the importance of it. You can use live video for product launches. You can use it for extended reach, for in-person live events, or, we're seeing a lot of executive town hall type of events and thought leadership outreach, webinar 3.0 business meetings, trainings, help desk, and Kelly in particular mentioned that, where in some cases they're just doing a customer service based live videos, which I think is incredibly smart too. And how are they doing this? They could be leveraging just their mobile device, like Owen mentioned, or they could be doing, video conferencing systems of some sort, or, if they're super fancy, they could get multiple pro cameras and some switching gear, and you can go all out. So from basic to all out, depending on what you want your show to look like. And there's so many options, and it doesn't have to be hard at the get-go. You can advance to the more fancy stuff later on. So which leads me to asking Randy a quick question. How are your customers really approaching live video, and how are they using it?
For a good part of our business, a lot of the live video trend has been a bit of white noise. They're sort of a consumer to consumer or business to end user experience, but it's become so easy and so affordable, and they see that trend towards monetizing this more enhanced engagement. There's a reason for them to jump in and do live video. The other thing that's been really easy for our customers to adopt is that the technologies, the cloud bridges that they use for traditional video conferencing, have enabled easeability into these live streams. So it's a couple of clicks and you're using life size to stream or record, and you can cherry pick whether or not you want to stream live or stream privately. So you can treat your live stream as a private, secure enterprise experience, or federate that out to a consumer group through Facebook or YouTube or any of the platforms we've talked about. So for a good amount of time, this was too complicated, too expensive. and then there were far too many choices. Now that there's sort of a come together of knowing that people want this content immediately and knowing that they can use it privately and not put corporate information out onto interwebs, they can choose that audience. And mostly what we're seeing is, particularly we're in the Bay Area, we have an office in New York, mostly what we see is that why would we have people drive in the traffic that drives most people crazy? And it's really nice to see each other, but if we're using video conferencing as a platform and we can be more engaged with our staff and do the best training once, why wouldn't we hit the record button, or why wouldn't we hit the stream button and let those folks who maybe could save some time and then therefore some money join the meeting and participate? And to create corporate culture, I think I'd say finally the other thing we're seeing is that to maintain culture and connectivity to each other, a lot of times these live streams, a monthly CEO discussion about what trends are happening or what customer trends that might need to be addressed is a nice way of calibrating the business via live stream. So lots more that we'll see, and I know you've got some follow-up questions, but I'll tend to keep it brief.
Well, definitely. You know, Josh talked about the user experience on Twitch. So I'm just curious about what type of user experience is available for live video now, especially in some of these video conferencing platforms. What does that look like? I mean, what are the options? What kind of, you know, I know a lot of this is evolving, but, you know, to your point, you know, things that we couldn't do in the past is very easy to do right now, you know, just leveraging the right tools.
It's actually quite simple too. I mean, throughout this meeting, I have 2 of my staff people on their own desktops or in purposely built systems capturing this meeting and live streaming. And I've actually done that on my iPad tethered to my phone. So the consumer products, the Twitches, the Facebooks, if they are available and there's eyeballs there, we in the video conferencing world can use the great cameras, or even an inexpensive camera has been mentioned on this call. We can use any of the equipment to bring it into a video conferencing meeting. And for a very long time, these were completely different silos. There were sort of streaming and YouTube spaces, and then there was the anointed boardroom that was only used by the special staff. So today what we realize is that because of the simplicity and because of the ease, customers are using not only life-size or Zoom or video, and any one of the bridges will have a stream or a record option. But then they're also using, for scale, a connection out to Facebook or YouTube or Twitch. We've experimented with some of our training videos in the Twitch space. Again, there's not a huge B2B space there yet, but as they change their model, it might be nice to be known as the video conferencing training experts in that platform. So my team and I are looking for ways that we can be disruptors in these platforms, but our customers are looking for ways to be early adopters. So we look for those pain points and try to make it not complicated for them.
Yeah, early adoption is always smart. And I love what you said about, you know, even though you feel like you're not, your ideal client's not necessarily there yet, they could be. And if you're there already, then you're the first choice of, you know.
Well,
so
and the cloud options are really
sense.
Complicated. We like to use the term that the cloud is cloudy. There are so many choices today. There are so many options.
So many.
We want to make sure they can monetize this in a way that solves the problems in front of them. So if this doesn't solve a business problem, they don't care, and nor should they. So what we look to do is map that to a problem that they can solve.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Well, I know Bill wants to discuss some of the options we have.
Sure, sounds good. So one of the things we want to keep in mind when you're putting together a live production, a live broadcast, is we talked about multi-channel distribution, right? So what's the number one place to distribute your video? It's your own website, your own brand, your own domain. So it's great to push your video out in the social media or through other platforms like Vimeo, for example, or YouTube, and then embed them on your site. But, you know, so there's a number of different players you can get, a number of different platforms. So there's a lot of free players out there, for instance, YouTube and Facebook Live, etc. But there's also some paid platforms that you want to consider as well. And these give you some more sophistication. They're basically give you a capability for a responsive player, a chat, polling, overlays, annotations, live text. And one of the things I particularly like about some of the leaders in the industry, like Brightcove, for example, is these, in their player they have what's called a dash capability. That's dynamic adaptive streaming over HTTP. And what that means is that multiple renditions of the video are created, so whether you're on a small device or on a large throughput of bandwidth, you're going to get a good experience, not just in terms of responsive sizing and the different platforms, but the data rate is going to adjust. And it can even adjust on the fly, which is pretty cool. Where, let's say you're streaming something in at 4 to 8 megabits per second, and all of a sudden you walked outside, you're looking at it on your iPad, you walked outside, and now all of a sudden you've switched over and your data rate has dropped down to less than a megabit per second. Through Dash, it would call up another one of those renditions, so it wouldn't have this buffering hang sort of experience. It would just switch over. It would be lower quality video, but it would keep playing. So that's some of the features that you would want to look at. It's interesting, there's been some growth in this area too, where Vimeo, as I mentioned, actually is going to be merging with Livestream. They're in the process of it now. So I'm excited to see how that develops. There's also, there used to be a company called Ustream that was recently purchased by IBM Cloud and Brand Live. That we've been using some of their statistics here today to share with you. That's some of the areas that I think you should consider taking a look at.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that there was some acquisitions going on there, but it's just smart. We talked about Amazon acquiring Twitch, so this is going to continue. There'll be bigger companies that don't have this technology, and they'll find somebody who does and acquire them. So that's awesome. Circling back real quick to Randy. Randy, what are some of, in your opinion, the technological advances or innovations that really can enhance the live video experience for the user, and even honestly for us as the creator? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure, and I enjoy being the resident nerd on team, so try not to get too geeky for this audience. You can certainly reach out to us if you want to know some of the bits and bytes of how this works, but it comes down to you actually don't need a technical team anymore. Even this example of this meeting, we do have a technical team. We've done a lot of production, and this is the best case scenario for recording, for streaming, and for content. But go to any YouTube and take a look at the latest feed, and it's, as Owen said, some kid on a shaky video and Blair Witching the heck out of all of us, and that is also a live feed. So we certainly have been able to improve because of some key enhancements, like the bandwidth not being as intensive, the software being able to correct for the problems. We used to look at Skype as a distraction. You'd hear NPR say, well, joining us on Skype, as though it was an excuse or an apology because we would get some broken audio. And today it's like saying joining you from Skype is like saying I called you from AT&T. No one cares. They just want to have a video call. So we're seeing other things like near field technology. I can walk into a conference room and this watch will communicate to a hub that says, today I'm in a life-size call. Launch life-size. Tomorrow I'm in a Zoom call. Launch Zoom. So the technology needs to get out of the way, and the manufacturers realize that. They don't need a IT team or an AV specialist to make these video calls happen. They want the end users to feel as comfortable making a video call or a live stream or getting into this content at work as they do when they're calling their kids or their family or looking at the cat videos, the prime directive of the internet. So why wouldn't we do that with video conferencing? And that's what we've seen happen, is that because of the simplicity, the adoption level is going through the roof. And as I mentioned before, really, Kim, that the idea that you can monetize this. I don't have to fly my trainer to 10 different locations. I don't have to take my sick people out of the loop for content watching. There's a way to bring people into the organization without a high cost and a high exposure.
And it also takes away the excuses of not creating content because you don't have all those things in place, right?
Sure.
So now it literally can be as simple as hitting a button, or maybe a couple of buttons, because it is that simple, to Randy's point.
And from a business perspective, we get to see whether or not someone is actually, we can track back. So it's not just about watching the content. It's like, well, how long did you stay on page? And did you answer the survey question? So there's a whole compliance component that we build into these platforms, so that when you're creating content or live streaming, you get to know what the engagement level is. I've been live chatting during this stream, during this meeting. Now, mind you, that's a little bit of the shiny object, chase the squirrel thing, and I'm pretty good at that. But more importantly, you end up by finding a way to see whether or not people are behaving as you hope they can, or if you're getting the content to them that's most meaningful. And if you're not, you get to adopt a new technology or a new strategy right away. So our customers are seeing a higher return on these investments, but more importantly, a quicker cycle of change. So they don't force people through technology for months at a time. They can do it once or twice and correct the next cycle through.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I'm going to put that same question in Bill's lap. So, Bill, what do you think? What do you see as the latest techie changes that really enhance the live video experience?
Mm-hmm. I can say it in 3 letters: NDI, Network Device Interface. This is fascinating in that if you can imagine all the cables and converters and all the junk, with these kind of big professional broadcasts that we're talking about that can be quite cumbersome, and we've actually got a considerable number of them over here today. I've got the whole office basically full of wires and converters and cables and cameras and all this stuff. NDI is pretty cool because it allows you to tap into your local area network. And you don't even have to have a cable. You can just use Ethernet. Now, what you want is you want to have a gigabit speed, ideally, to be able to switch back and forth. This is for HD 2K. You can get a number of different cameras over there, but you wouldn't actually have to physically connect other than through Ethernet if you wanted to go in that fashion. Of course, another great thing is the advanced analytics that you have, and a lot of these platforms I was talking about, that's really come a long way, and it's great to see all the statistics so you can make a decision on what you're going to be doing with your marketing efforts in video.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's so many things that lots of times when we're a business owner, we are interested in, what are those numbers, because they tie back into the ROI, right? And let's talk real quick about that piece of it, because I think, again, as business owners, we want to know here we are, we're out here, we're creating all this content. Is it for naught, or, is there a real ROI that we can put our finger on? And the social media space, I think lots of times there are things that we do that we can't put our finger on, but with live video, I think there is definitely places where we can see increased conversions. Honestly, in my opinion, it's the fastest path to the know, like, and trust factor that I've ever seen. It's a fantastic way to get our products and services in front of our customers and ultimately make faster sales. The sales of marketing handoff is better because of the live interaction, and people can ask their questions and you can address their concerns and purchasing obstacles in real time, which in most cases does absolutely increase the sales. So there's so many ways that you can put touch points on the ROI, leveraging the power of live video. Going back to Kelly. Kelly, what are the ways that you can use live streaming video to increase ROI, or how do you guys use live streaming, and how do you, measure that at HubSpot?
Sure. So the way that we think of it with ROI is we start very broad in awareness. The value of awareness for us and in the social world is tremendous. And this is primarily because of our retargeting. So when we have a wide audience that we can access and see who's really watching, who's watching again, that's where then we can do some retargeting with our further marketing efforts to actually bring them further through the funnel. And I do think it's important to mention too that when we're thinking of ROI, you do start at that very first point of investment. And pivoting off of the equipment talk, I think for social, it's really interesting to think about what kind of investment each channel requires or is asking for. So for example, Instagram Stories Live, when we tried to make those a little more high end and a little more produced, people weren't as interested as in when we were doing them like kind of scrappy and how like I might do, if I was at a cool concert or something. So I think it's making sure you're listening to the channel itself, and then listening to your audience and retargeting them through those same channels. And that gets more also into the world of advertising, where and through the HubSpot product, you're able to actually pull contacts in from social, to be able to continue all of that really organic funnel plays.
Kim, if I may, I'd love to comment on that for Kelly.
Yeah.
The thing that I've noticed, we had, and you can see it on the screen here, we have record.perfectvc. We've been doing that for 10 years. It's a life-size live streaming product, and we used it for mainly broadcasting our meetings and for our help desk. So if you want to go there and sort of figure out how to make the stuff you bought from us work, we've got quick tutorials. So it's post-production, a guy on a camera, and mostly me, running my mouth. We know we could do live streaming. We can get people to watch it, but we weren't getting engaged. So we're a HubSpot customer. We're a Direct Images customer. And while we do and have been doing video conferencing-based live streaming, we haven't been doing customer engagement live streaming. We haven't been using user adoption live streaming. So this is the skill set that, again, while we're experts at what we do, and we've branded ourselves perfect video conferencing. So if we get this really right and we need help, I think that's really what points people towards someone like HubSpot or someone like Bill, the genius of all of this. You have to have the skill sets in order to make sure the content out there is relevant. Because as you said, Kim, there's 70% adoption, and lots of businesses are using this, and a lot of it becomes a big so what. And it's not a so what if there's meaningful content or the right times of engagements, or you're getting that ideal client profile and bringing them content that's relevant to them. Because with everyone now doing it, we need to make sure that we're differentiating ourselves and actually getting content that's relevant for the business needs in front of us.
I'm so glad you said that, Randy, because I think this is true across the board for any type of content these days. There's so much content out there. Everybody's creating content, whether it's a blog content or social media content or whatever it is. We have got to stop creating content for content's sake and really focus in on creating content that truly is value-based to our ideal customer or our customer base, so that we do show up in a way that they are going to tune into our content routinely, versus us just being noise out there. Live video right now is still a little bit uncharted, but eventually it'll become just like blog content. There's a blog on every corner and then some, right? So you definitely have to make sure that when you're going live with content, that it is value based and that you do engage with the community that either you're attracting to your live stream, and or that are already a part of your community and they're tuning into your content. I think it's really, really important. Just talking a little bit, jumping fast forward and just a tad bit again around monetizing live video. There's several ideas on how you can leverage the power of your live streams. Whether it's on-site events and increasing your paid attendees with like an added virtual audience. I see a lot of events doing that now, where you can buy a virtual ticket to an event. So that's a monetization strategy. Just again, from an advertising standpoint, Kelly touched on this a little bit, where she said there are some strategies where you can use paid media and that kind of thing. But I think there's an absolute need for integration with your advertising dollars, so that you can start to apply ad spend to things that make sense to get more eyeballs on that piece of content. The beautiful part about leveraging the power of Facebook ads, as an example, is that Facebook gives the analytics on your live videos, so you can see, who watched how much of your video. You can retarget those people with additional content or perhaps even a sales message. So there's so many options as it relates to monetizing your live content in some very unique ways. And from a standpoint of why you really want to, I think, take a step back and say, I got to do this. Live video needs to be a top priority in my business. from a benefit standpoint, I'm just going to run over a couple of things that I think are probably key and kind of top of mind when it comes to, benefits that are out there for us as business owners. You get to build new and amazing relationships within your community or attract new people into your community. You get to build and nurture that trust instantly. You can receive immediate feedback and even testimonials in a live environment. And, I mentioned this earlier, it's very agile. It's a low barrier to entry, and it's an immediate, you have that immediate feedback from your community. So you don't want to be left behind here. Your peers, your competition is absolutely there, or they're going to be there. They're increasing their budgets. They're leveraging the power of paid media to get more visibility to their live content. In the IBM survey, businesses conveyed that video will be a top priority for them in 2018, and that live video is even a bigger priority, with close to 95% saying that live video will be an important part of their marketing mix. And so it should be. In my humble opinion, a live video is going to be it's not going to be, I think it is the future of how we consume content, in large part anyway.
The video conferencing space is part of that 70 billion plus that you all were talking about, but for us, we're a $12 billion industry, and much of it today is up for grabs. We've shifted providers. Many of the providers who were trying to create bridges have now become endpoints to a bridge. There are disruptors like Hangouts. There are freemium softwares out there that are becoming business grade. So for us, pretty much everything's up for grabs, and live video as a portion of that differentiates the businesses that are choosing to adopt. So most of our customers will come to us with a very traditional video conferencing problem. I'm tired of traveling. I want to connect my workforce. I'd like to create trainings that are immersive. I want multiple camera angles. We handle all of that. And then as they realize that they've got this great technology that doesn't cost a fortune, how do they then reinvest that technology in other uses? And so that live video becomes a pretty key component to that next phase. I'd say 70% of our customer base uses some form of capture the camera. Many of those are doing live feeds. Most of them are considering, why wouldn't we do some form of live feed? So there's a B2C relationship. If the client has a social media presence that's important to revenue, great, they'll do that. But then there's also an internal, maintain the connection to my staff, and how do they get the content that we've created? And again, they keep their costs down by using that content over multiple occasions or multiple times. Like I said, we've seen it in about 50% of our customers.
So Bill, what do you think? What do you see as the future of live streaming video? Is it going to be the real deal for a while, or do you see it fading away?
No, I see it definitely sticking around and getting more and more immediate for people. The other thing that's happening is that, I remember doing little tiny QuickTime movies at 240 by 160. Now we got 4K coming up. 4K. Can you imagine streaming 4K over the internet? Well, part of what's going on there is the compression codecs are really improving. There is H.265, and that is more commonly known as HEVC. That's going to be making much better compression algorithms so that the videos will be clear, won't eat up as much bandwidth. Also, the advent of gigabit internet it has an impact as well, and it allows you to create a more immersive experience, including things like 360 video and annotations with augmented reality. So all that sort of stuff, which would eat up a lot of bandwidth that we wouldn't consider a couple of years ago, is coming. So that's the good news. The bad news is that the FCC and net neutrality are kind of excited about where they might be able to tap in and restrict things or allow service providers to figure out ways to monetize. Hey, let's face it, everybody wants to make a buck here and there, and that's the service providers are no exception to that. So don't be surprised if social media starts getting tapped by the service providers saying, hey, if you want to get access to this, we can get you a bundle like they did on the cable TV or something like that, where they're going to start charging you for internet access. People that need to eat up tremendous bandwidth like we do with streaming video, might have to pay a premium. So hopefully that won't come to pass. We'll see. It depends on the state you're in, probably. But that's the good and the bad of it, as I see it.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's only a matter of time, in my opinion, because you're right. There are those of us who are kind of hogging bandwidth when it comes to live streaming. And it'll be just like our cell phones, we'll end up having to pay for some sort of unlimited, bandwidth at some point in time, I would imagine. So real quick, before I have to ask a couple more questions of Randy and Bill, but I know lots of times when we are trying to figure out if we're going to do live streaming, we're looking for a little bit of maybe some structure on, how to set it up, how to create a successful live video program. And I think at the core of it, you just have to decide between two things, whether you want to keep it really casual and informal or and simple, from a tech standpoint, or do you want to have more like a TV show with high-end production value? The interesting part about it is you literally can have your own TV show with high-end production value. Anybody can do it. You don't have to have a network deal anymore to have a TV show. You literally can create an amazing piece of content or a series of content and attract people to you to watch just like they would watch, anything on TV. It's exactly the same thing. And interestingly enough, it can be casual. It doesn't have to be high end for that to happen. So just making that simple decision. And I would encourage you to start with a simple, just in the interest of not getting held up on, trying to make everything super complex and figuring it all out on the front side. You can always circle back and make things better versus not getting it done simply because it's overwhelming out the gate. Question for Randy. What are some great tips for our viewers, things that they should be aware of when putting together a live video event?
Yeah, sure, thanks. Great question, because just because you can do it doesn't mean you should often. And for us, as I mentioned, we've been doing live streaming and we just didn't know whether or not we were engaged. So HubSpot has helped us really find that right audience. Mostly it comes down to some best practices. Even these $35 earbuds on a mobile device will help create a better environment for your listeners. The O-rings or the tripods really help, but it comes down to some basic meeting management too. So when you have a meeting, you're going to be using people's time, and you want to be respectful about that. So you have an agenda, you have some talking points, you stay on point. When YouTube launched, everyone was excited about watching someone meander in their thoughts. And if I'm watching someone play a video game, great to get the color commentary. But at work, oftentimes we want to get in and get out of our meeting as quickly as possible with the most effective content as possible. So a little bit of thought about the agenda and how respectful you're going to be towards your engaged parties, some thought about where the camera placement is, so you're not maybe up on the iPad, you're looking up someone's nostrils instead of looking at their face, their speaker notes in the right location so they're not sort of off camera and not paying attention. Some of those small little placements of, again, a microphone or a speaker or a camera, some lighting, makes the environment less distraction. And as Owen mentioned, it could be a couple $100, it could be free. It doesn't have to be expensive, but just the time you take to think about it makes a huge, huge difference. And most of the manufacturers have all-in-one devices that'll do some echo canceling, some bandwidth management, really optimize that experience so that, again, you didn't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a special boardroom that's anointed just for the executive team. Democratize the stuff, give access to everybody, but when you do it in a way that what has been recorded isn't a distraction or isn't full of noise and crappy audio. I think the final thing I'd say about that, Kim, is that audio wins. We like video,
Amen.
We like connecting, but if you haven't ever looked at Tripp and Tyler and their voice conferencing in real life or video conferencing in real life, it's a funny YouTube that we use for training purposes. All the trips and triggers that bothered us 25 years ago when we all first joined our audio call and people were leaning in and yelling at the microphones and speakers, all of that stuff is true in a video world. And if audio dies, people are going to stop working and go back to their cubes and check their email. They're just not going to be interested in the content.
Yeah, I've often said that, a lot of other things can struggle when you're live, except for your sound. Your sound has to be like amazing. I've had, and obviously, sometimes things go wrong and you can't help that. You're live, if something goes south, you just have to deal with it. But yeah, sound is critical. So Kelly, what, in your opinion, are some amazing practices for those that may be just stepping into the live streaming and want to come out the gate with some core strategies? What would you recommend to them?
Totally. So my first tip would be to know who you're talking to, not just as someone who may buy your product, but as who they are as human beings. In the social space, there's so many tools that can help you here, especially Facebook, in the world of audience, interests, and insights. So on social in particular, it's not just enough to talk about yourself. You need to talk about your audience. So if they love Ellen DeGeneres, you find a way to talk about Ellen DeGeneres and your product. So being able to actually talk to your audience as human beings first and as potential customers after gets you tremendously far. So in the sense of a marketing strategy around live video, I think it's equally important to have a creative strategy around how you approach live video. But with that said, live video is also a very interesting space to figure out where you can carve yourself out. So if your first one or two don't really go that great, don't give up on it. Don't use a use case of one or two. Keep going, because also in the social space, consistent presence is really important. If you do a video one day, but your audience doesn't see you for another month, they may not remember, and your awareness starts to diminish over time, and the impact and your ROI start to decrease. So consistency, really speaking to your audience as people and working that into your creative strategy alongside your marketing strategy can really develop a secret sauce for live video.
You slam dunked that one. I love that. Loved your answer. Bill, what do you think from a strategy standpoint and live video, as in incorporating live video into a business? What would you suggest? What are your best tips?
Well, I'd say be sure to plan out thoroughly. So, a lot of people on our team are looking for me to plan out a number of different areas, not just in terms of the creative content, and this would be the same for anybody that's producing a show. Would be, what's the content? Do you have a creative brief initially? Do you have you got the script together? Who are the speakers? Have you got them lined up? And then you've also got to take into consideration promoting the event, through terms of social media or even advertising. And some of that stuff can take weeks or months to really get put together, depending upon how many people you have on your staff and how much time you can allocate to it, per week.
Yeah, great answer. I totally agree. So I know we probably have a few questions, and I think Bill has been monitoring those. Anything on your end, Bill, that we haven't really covered down on that we can answer for any of our viewers?
I think we're good. Generally speaking, I did want to say thank you for everybody that stayed tuned. I know we went past the original time frame. We got a hard stop here at 12:30. So I did want to just see a couple of questions here have come in. How can a company decide what level of video will effectively grow their business? I see is one of the questions that came in. I think like what we heard earlier, maybe start with something simple in the beginning and then go from there. This would also be the same for your budget, which I see is another question.
I'd also say, Bill, it's easy to jump in.
What kind of budget can you put together?
Why not jump in and be in the mix? And if it's simple and almost free, YouTube is free. You could take a camera and record and send it up there. If you're there, it's better than not being there. The risk of not being in the mix is bigger than the cost of attempting.
Amen. That's a quotable moment.
Yeah.
I'm good for them once in a while.
Just get started. I mean, I know that sometimes we get, wrapped up in the perfection of it, or, we have to have the perfect strategy. But I would suggest you just get started and try some things, see what your community actually engages with. And Kelly made a great point. Just because you may put yourself out there one or two times and you're not seeing immediate return, don't judge based on that. Keep after it. Keep trying new things. Eventually you'll strike the right note with your community, and the things that they really engage with and love up. You'll be able to see that, and then you can do more of it. It's a consistency and ultimately just getting out there and starting to put yourself out into the live streaming space where people can start to consume content in that manner. Because the interesting part about it is it's very similar to when we first started in the social space. And I used to tell my clients, there are people out there hosting conversations around your product or your service, whether it's you specifically or whether it's just that niche. There are people out there having conversations. And if you're not a part of it, you're missing out. And it's exactly the same with live video. If you're not out there and you're not, part of the space, then you just are missing a golden opportunity, because so many people are consuming content in this manner right now.
Mm-hmm. I saw another question coming here from Facebook. It says, can Twitch help kids start a channel and monetize? So part of what we're looking at there is that Twitch can set you up initially free, so you can just go in there free. And as you grow, they want you, we talked about consistency, they're going to want you to be putting out a certain number of shows on get a certain frequency going in order to get to the place where you can monetize. So it's basically you're looking to build your audience and be putting out productions on a consistent place, and then you can kind of advance in your tiers. I think they also have other ways that you can do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, any last questions?
Well, I like to say this, that we're running out of time because we've got a hard stop here in a few moments. If you have any questions about consultation, that sort of thing, we can actually give you a one-on-one consultation at Direct Images Interactive. Just on the page there that the video's on, you'll be able to fill out a form there, and then we can set up a scheduled meeting with you to talk more in detail if you'd like to. And then, of course, you could just even just drop in a few questions or something like that in that area as well. So I did want to thank our host today, Kim. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of our guests for all the panelists there. Thank you so much for being part of this event. We're very happy that you were able to join us today. And also, we wanted to thank one of our sponsors here, Core Microsystems. They've been great in helping us with some equipment and some other connectivity testing, shall we say. And so they've been great about there. They're very knowledgeable. And then also, this event was made possible with live stream, which is the technology we used that we found to be really quite good. So thanks, everybody. That's it for today. Look forward to being with you at our next live broadcast.